Herself. I hope to share a better update, but I will not be returning to play the season. I spent hours in the gym every day with the singular goal of getting back out there. Disappointed isn't a big enough word to describe how I'm feeling. I want to thank everyone who has had my back through all this uncertainty. This has been incredibly frustrating, but even in the bad, there is good. And the way the fans continue to show up for me and for the Fever brought me so much joy and important perspective. I'm so proud of how this team has only gotten stronger through adversity this year. Now it's time to close out the season and claim our spot.
What happens when the one player single-handedly carrying the WNBA decides she's done for the season? Not day to day. Not maybe in a few weeks. Not even we'll see how rehab goes. No, officially out. The answer isn't just heartbreak for Indiana Fever fans who packed arenas all summer hoping to witness history. It's something much bigger. It's panic. It's collapse. It's the kind of blow that doesn't just end a season. It exposes an entire system. Because Caitlin Clark wasn't just the league's brightest rookie. She wasn't just a headline. She wasn't just another star in the making. She was the story, the engine behind record-breaking ticket sales. The reason millions of casual sports fans tuned in to games they never cared about before. The face plastered on every marketing campaign, every highlight reel, every conversation about women's basketball. So when she stood up and made it official, no return, no miracle comeback, no late season savior moment. It wasn't just bad news. It was a brutal wake-up call. A reality check the WNBA had been trying to avoid all year. Because let's be real, Caitlin Clark wasn't just part of the league. For a lot of people, she was the league. And the moment she stepped away, the entire foundation started shaking.
When she was supposed to return versus the Minnesota Lynx, supposedly, and then the Scott Agneses and all them start talking about she suffered a bone bruise in Phoenix, I told y'all it was a wrap. It was done. It was done. They knew it. And I believe they've known far longer. They have known. They've kept us fans in the dark, and it sucks. It absolutely sucks. Man, I was so looking forward to watching Caitlin Clark play this season. Now we have to wait an entire offseason, and we don't even know what's going to happen. There might be a lockout. There might not even be a 2026 season, guys.
For weeks, fans were left hanging in limbo. Injury updates felt more like riddles than answers. She's progressing. She's making progress. We'll reevaluate in a couple of weeks. The Fever front office fed just enough optimism to keep hope alive, while social media exploded with speculation. Would she be back for the playoff push? Could she pull off a comeback story that would go down in WNBA history? Reporters hounded the team for details. Analysts debated timelines on air. Fans scanned every practice photo, searching for clues. The league, meanwhile, leaned heavily into the suspense. Because even the possibility of a Clark return was enough to sell tickets and keep TV numbers afloat. But then, without fanfare, Caitlin Clark ended the guessing game herself. No staged press conference. No carefully worded PR statement. Just a simple post in her own words. I will not be returning this season. One sentence, 13 words. But it landed like a sledgehammer. For Fever fans, it felt like the ground had been ripped out from under them. An entire summer of waiting, of clinging to the idea of a miraculous comeback, gone in an instant. For the team, it meant their playoff hopes had just lost their anchor. And for the WNBA, a league that had been carefully wrapping its entire season around Clark's name, it meant the golden ticket was gone. That wasn't just a gut punch for Indiana. That was a shockwave that ripped through every franchise, every broadcast partner, every sponsor. And what started as one player's announcement quickly turned into a wildfire that spread across the entire league.
This has been a huge disaster as far as public perception for the WNBA. An entirely new group of people started tuning in to this league for one player and one player only. In fact, so many new people tuned into this league, the viewership for the Caitlin Clark games largely surpassed anything else going on in the WNBA. I would argue that the amount of Caitlin Clark fans are at least 3x the amount of WNBA.
Let's talk numbers, because numbers don't lie. When Caitlin Clark was on the floor, the Fever averaged over 1.2 million viewers per game. That's more than some NBA regular season broadcasts. The buzz was real. She was pulling in casual fans who had never once thought about women's basketball. But then came July 15th, the groin injury. Almost overnight, ratings collapsed. National broadcasts dropped by more than 50%, falling into the 700,000 range. That's not a dip. That's a free fall. And remember, at that point, fans still believed she might return. Ticket prices told the same story. The Washington Mystics moved a game to Baltimore to handle the expected Clark crowd. But when news broke she wouldn't play, tickets that started at $41 crashed to $1. That's not a typo. $1. Chicago Sky games without her lost more than half their resale value in 48 hours. And suddenly, teams that had been banking on Clark's name to fill bigger arenas were stuck staring at empty seats. The reality was undeniable. The league wasn't just losing a player. It was losing its only true draw. Behind the scenes, executives went from uneasy to full-blown panic mode. The historic growth narrative that had been plastered all over media releases? Gone. Sponsors who had signed million-dollar deals were suddenly asking hard questions. Television partners like ESPN and ABC, who structured their summer coverage around Caitlin Clark games, were left scrambling. And the Fever front office didn't help. Fans accused them of stringing people along, pretending Clark still had a chance to return just to keep tickets moving. The trust was gone. The excitement was gone. And now, the season felt like a lie. But this crisis wasn't just financial. It was personal. Inside the locker room, Clark's teammates were devastated. They knew how hard she'd worked to try and return. They saw the hours in the gym. They saw her traveling to away games, still signing autographs, still meeting fans, even while sidelined. But the wider league? That's where things got messy. For months, rival players had mocked Clark, roughed her up on the court, and even downplayed her importance. Now, those same players were staring at half-empty arenas. The petty jealousy that had been bubbling all season suddenly looked foolish. Because with Clark out, the spotlight went with her. It wasn't just that fans missed her scoring. They missed her energy, her story, her magnetism. And without it, the WNBA felt like background noise again.
Team, because she knows just how much she means to everybody that buys those tickets. I mean, I would say at least like 90 to maybe not 95, but like 90% of the people in arenas were there to see Caitlin Clark, which of course they became fans of the Fever afterwards. But you know, Caitlin Clark is the draw. And then here's this one where she's actually in her street clothes. And yeah, these are, you know, pretty heartfelt photos, her in the huddle with her teammates. But I gotta say, this was quite a year. I mean, there came a certain point where people, including myself, were just like, what is actually going on? I think that it's time. It was definitely time to tell fans.
This was the moment of truth, and the truth was ugly. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert could call Clark the most popular athlete in America all she wanted, but popularity comes with weight. And that weight crushed the league the moment Clark stepped aside. The WNBA spent decades trying to build itself into a sustainable product. But when Clark showed up, she didn't just lift the league, she became it. One player, one brand, one reason people tuned in. And when she went down, media outlets that had been forced to acknowledge the WNBA suddenly stopped caring. ESPN hosts admitted openly, if Clark's not playing, the league isn't worth covering. That's not an opinion. That's a verdict. But here's the most brutal part. This entire disaster was preventable. From day one, Clark was targeted. Hard fouls, elbows, trash talk that went way beyond the norm. She took more physical punishment in a single season than some veterans see in years. And the league? It barely lifted a finger to protect her. Then, when she got injured, instead of prioritizing her health, there were whispers they rushed her back to protect ticket sales and ratings. Fans felt manipulated. They stopped trusting updates. Every vague report sounded like a lie. And now, the result speaks for itself. Their biggest investment, the player who carried the WNBA into the spotlight, is out. Not because of bad luck, but because the league failed to protect her, both physically and strategically. So now the question becomes, what's left? The ripple effect is brutal. Fans who discovered women's basketball through Caitlin Clark are saying exactly what the league feared most. If she's out, I'm out. Sponsors are quietly rethinking their commitments. Networks are bracing for playoff ratings that could sink lower than they've been in years. And for the Fever? Their season went from championship dreams to barely clinging to the 8th seed. Without Clark, they're not contenders. They're placeholders. Some even whisper about a 2026 lockout, with labor disputes brewing and league economics in total chaos. If one player's injury can crash an entire product, how stable is that product really? But in the middle of all this, one person somehow comes out stronger.
The WNBA ratings' worst nightmare just came true because it was just announced that Caitlin Clark will be out for the rest of the season. She's only played 13 games this season, and her most recent injury, which happened back in July, was a groin injury. The craziest part about all of this has been the reporting around her injury. The team has never given her a timetable for return, and literally up until today, the team had been reporting that she was still trying to get back on the court this season. The Fever only have 3 regular season games left in the season before playoffs. Some fans were even speculating that they've just been stringing fans along the whole time because they know that ratings and attendance would drop once they announced that she's out, which is also so ironic that they announced it the day that football season starts.
Think about the timing of Clark's announcement. She could have dragged it out, kept hope alive, let the league milk her name all the way into the playoffs. Instead, she ended it herself. By speaking directly to fans, she took the power back. She exposed the truth the league didn't want anyone to admit. Without her, they have nothing. And ironically, that only cements her status as the queen of the game. She doesn't even need to be on the court to control the narrative. She doesn't need to score another point to prove her value. Her absence says it all. So here we are. The WNBA's growth era ended not with a championship celebration, but with one announcement from one player. Caitlin Clark wasn't just part of the league. She was the league. And now that she's gone, everything is collapsing. Ratings, ticket sales, sponsorships, credibility. The question isn't what happens to Clark without the WNBA. She'll recover. She'll come back stronger. She'll still be a star. The real question is what happens to the WNBA without Caitlin Clark. And based on the panic we're already seeing, the answer isn't pretty.